There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes she's done begging to be seen. She's done explaining her worth to someone who keeps misplacing it. And instead of making a scenic, she makes an exit. Powerful. Final. And that's when something shifts, not just in him, but in her. Because disappearing isn't about being petty, it's about choosing yourself so unapologetically that it leaves a silence he can't fill, and a legacy you build without him. So today isn't about getting him back. It's not about playing games. It's about strategy, self-worth, and the kind of growth that doesn't just move on, it levels up. When someone walks away from us, the first instinct is often to fight for an explanation, to beg for understanding, or to search for closure. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is exactly the opposite. Nothing. You don't chase, you don't text, you don't try to force clarity. You just fall completely silent. Because silence, in its purest form, is louder than any speech, any rant, any well-thought-out message. It speaks directly to the part of a person that expected access to you forever. It interrupts the rhythm they were used to. And that interruption, that's where impact begins. When you stop responding, when you stop reaching out, when you stop feeding the connection in any way, you shift the power dynamic instantly. It's no longer about how he feels about you. It becomes about what he lost, what he didn't nurture, what he underestimated. And people don't start missing you when you're still present. They miss you when they go looking, and you're just gone. No messages to dissect, no photos to comment on, no emotional residue left behind. You vanish in a way that says, I've moved on to more important things than convincing you to value me. That kind of silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It's rooted in self-respect. Because it's not about manipulating someone into missing you. It's about reclaiming your energy from a place that no longer deserved it. It's about acknowledging that the connection wasn't growing you. It was draining you. And rather than argue about that, rather than ask why it couldn't be different, you take all that energy back and use it to build something better. For yourself. Here's what makes this kind of silence so louding: it leaves space for reality to settle in. When you're constantly in someone's face, texting, checking in, posting in hopes they'll notice, you're actually making it easier for them to avoid the weight of what they lost. But when you remove yourself completely, that safety net disappears. They're left alone with the absence. They're left wondering, wait, did she really just walk away? It creates a pause, and in that pause, regret can grow. Not because you forced it, but because they finally had to face life without your presence as a constant. There's also something incredibly attractive about emotional discipline. When you can hold yourself back from reacting, from seeking validation, from needing to be understood, that's power. It shows maturity. It shows boundaries. It shows you're not desperate for a response. You're not here to perform emotional labor for someone who didn't protect what he had. You've gone quiet not because you're weak, but because you've evolved. You've realized that begging someone to see you doesn't make you more visible. It only makes you smaller in your own eyes. Silence is how you reclaim that space. It's how you grow back into the version of you that doesn't need permission to walk away. This kind of silence also gives you the breathing room you didn't realize you needed. The longer you stay quiet, the more your focus returns to yourself. You start to notice things again, your thoughts clear. You gain perspective. You start choosing peace over chaos. And as your attention shifts back to your life, your dreams, your healing, what you left behind begins to look smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. In the end, silence isn't a game. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about deciding that if someone didn't value your voice when they had it, they don't deserve to hear it echoing after you're gone. You don't make a scene. You don't announce your exit. You just stop showing up and trust that your absence will do the talking. Energy is something we often underestimate, especially in relationships. We focus on words, actions, even appearances. but it's the energy we bring into a space that speaks first. Before you even say hello, before you post the photo or send the text, your energy introduces you. And the truth is, when someone feels your absence, what they're really feeling is the shift in that energy. When you walk away and pour all that energy back into yourself, you become magnetic, not to win someone back, but because you've finally stopped leaking your power into someone who didn't know what to do with it in the first place. Think about how much time and emotional bandwidth you used to spend trying to be understood, trying to fix things, overthinking what to say or how to act. You were constantly adjusting your energy to match theirs, to smooth things over, to keep the connection alive. But when you stop doing that, when you start redirecting that same energy toward your growth, your peace, your evolution, it changes everything. You don't just disappear physically, you disappear energetically. And that's when they feel it. That's when they notice. What makes this powerful is that you're not putting on a show. You're not trying to look like you've moved on. You're actually doing it. You're waking up in the morning and thinking about your goals, your joy, your next step. You're putting your phone down more. You're posting less or more intentionally. You're going to the gym, picking up a hobby, booking trips, surrounding yourself with people who pour into you. It's not about pretending anymore. It's real. You're building a life that doesn't revolve around being chosen by someone else. And that energy, that quiet, confident, self-contained energy, that's what people remember. That's what makes them stop and think, wait, she feels different. The beauty of this is that you're no longer dependent on someone else's recognition to validate your value. You've stopped waiting for him to notice. You've stopped hoping he'll realize what he lost. Because somewhere along the way, you realized the point was never about whether he saw you. It was about whether you did. And when you finally do, when you truly recognize your worth and start living like it, you become untouchable in the best way. People are drawn to self-possession. There's something compelling about someone who knows who they are, where they're going, and doesn't need anyone to complete them. That kind of energy isn't loud. It's steady. It doesn't beg. It attracts. And what often happens is that the very person who once took you for granted starts to feel the void of what used to be there. They start to feel your energy leaving their life. But by then, you're not the same version of you that wanted to be chosen. You've become someone who chooses herself every single day. This is the moment when you realize the power was never in the chase, the message, the perfectly timed social post. It was in the shift, in the way you stopped trying and started evolving, in the way you stopped reacting and started building. The regret they feel doesn't come because you made a scene. It comes because you leveled up. You became someone they no longer have access to. Not because you're being cruel, but because you finally understood your energy is sacred. And not everyone gets to experience it. And that's the truth. When your energy changes, everything else follows. You don't have to shout about how you've moved on. You don't have to prove anything. You just rise and let your new frequency speak for itself. When someone hurts you, disrespects you, or takes you for granted, the temptation is often to lash out, to block them, to unfollow, delete, erase. Something dramatic to show them, you don't get to do this to me. But the truth is, that kind of reaction often gives them exactly what they wanted: confirmation that they still have access to your emotions. Even in anger, you're still feeding the connection. You're still handing over your energy. Blocking may seem like a clean break, but emotionally, it can keep you stuck in the game, still watching, still wondering, still proving a point. But what if instead of blocking him, you blindside him? With your silence, your indifference, your sudden absence from his world. There's nothing more jarring than realizing someone who once cared deeply is no longer interested in being seen at all. No message, no warning, no flurry of unfollows. Just a complete emotional and energetic disappearance. That's how you blindside someone. not with noise, not with announcements, but with the quiet decision that says, you're not even worth a reaction. That kind of disappearance is powerful because it's not about creating distance. It's about becoming unreachable. He expected you to be angry. He expected the block. He expected the passive-aggressive stories, the cryptic quotes, the unfriending, the reactive drama. Instead, he gets nothing. And that nothing, it speaks volumes. When you disappear without drama, it's disarming because you're no longer participating in the emotional exchange. You're no longer a character in his story. You've walked off the stage entirely, and he's left wondering if the show is over. That quiet exit forces him to face himself. He can't fight with silence. He can't argue with no response. There's nothing for him to push against. It's unsettling. And that's exactly the point. Not because you're trying to punish him, but because you've realized that your presence was never the problem. His inability to value it was. This move isn't about being cold or passive-aggressive. It's about emotional maturity. You don't disappear because you're weak. You disappear because you're done. Not just with him, but with the cycle of needing to be heard by someone who's not listening, by someone who listens only to react or manipulate, not to understand. Walking away without a word is your declaration that you no longer need to be seen by him to be valid. You've outgrown the conversation. You've chosen peace over performance. He won't see it coming, and that's what stings. He thought you'd always be there. Maybe angry, maybe hurt, maybe trying to get his attention, but still there. And now, you're not. You've taken your energy, your attention, your care, and directed it towards something that actually nourishes you. Yourself, your healing, your growth. There's nothing left for him to cling to. No thread to pull, no open door to test. And whether he admits it or not, it creates a void, because people don't truly miss what they always expected would stay. They miss what's gone without warning. They miss the person who stopped giving them previews of her exit and just walked out, quietly and completely. In that silence, he's forced to look at the role he played. You're not trying to make him regret anything, but regret becomes inevitable when someone realizes they had full access to your heart and treated it like a backup option. And now, that access is gone. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Not because you hate him, but because you finally love yourself more than the idea of being chosen by someone who never knew what he had. And by the time he figures that out, you'll be long gone, already living the version of your life that doesn't include him in the cast. When you walk away from someone, it's not just your presence they lose. It's everything that came with it. It's easy for people to think they're only losing your time, your affection, your companionship. But the truth is, they're losing access to something far more valuable than you. The full experience of you. The support you offered on bad days. The way you believed in them when they doubted themselves. The small moments of kindness, the gentle reminders, the laughter, the softness. All of that goes with you when you leave. And the loss of that kind of access doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in slowly, and it stings deeply. At first, they might act unbothered. Maybe they even expected you to leave eventually. But what they often don't anticipate is that when you go, everything goes. No more late night comfort, no more just checking in, texts, no more emotional safety net they didn't realize they were leaning on. You're not just gone physically. You're emotionally, mentally, spiritually unavailable. The version of you that loved them unconditionally, that held space for their chaos, that stood by them through the confusion, that version is no longer on call. And the more they try to find that version again, the more they realize she's not coming back. That's the difference between taking space and truly cutting off access. Taking space leaves the door open a crack. It keeps the possibility alive. Cutting off access, though, it's final. It says, you don't get to come back here. You don't get to experience the best of me after showing me you didn't value it. It's not about holding a grudge or seeking revenge. It's about protecting your energy, your peace, and your future. Because once someone shows you they can't handle access to you with care, your only job is to stop handing it out. What hurts someone more than being blocked is being forgotten. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Because they thought they could mistreat you and still have pieces of you afterward. They thought they could check in, poke at your life every now and then, maybe circle back when they were ready. But when you've truly evolved, they can't find you in the same places anymore. You don't answer the same way. You don't react. You don't respond. You're not cold. You're simply done. They no longer have access to your warmth because it now belongs to someone who earned it you. When you cut off that access, you take away the illusion of permanence. And that's what shocks them the most. They realize you weren't just someone who would always be there. You were a privilege, a presence, a force in their life that made things better, even when they didn't say it out loud. And now that it's gone, they're left facing a version of life that's a little quieter, a little colder, a little emptier, not because you took anything from them, but because they gave it away carelessly, thinking it would always return. This isn't about making them suffer. It's about refusing to suffer anymore yourself. When someone loses access to you, they don't just lose the relationship. They lose the chance to be in proximity to the person you are becoming. And that version of you, the one who's healing, growing, rising, she doesn't look back. She knows her energy is rare, and she no longer gives repeat chances to people who only learned her value once they lost her. You were always the gift. Walking away just made it obvious. There's a difference between pretending you're okay and actually being okay. There's a difference between performing strength and building it. The most powerful transformation doesn't happen when you're trying to prove something to someone who hurt you. It happens when you stop thinking about them entirely and start focusing on you. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You need a plan, a purpose, a reason to get up every morning that has nothing to do with them. Because when you pour into yourself, fully, intentionally, unapologetically, you create something that no one can take from you. A life that's yours. A life that feels so good, so strong, so fulfilling, that you stop caring whether they regret losing you or not. Because by then, you've outgrown the need for their regret. This is where the shift happens. You stop building to be seen and start building to become. You stop thinking, I hope they notice, and instead think, how far can I go if I stop looking back? That's when you start making progress. That's when you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because confidence is loud in its silence. You begin walking into rooms differently. You start speaking with more certainty, dressing for yourself, prioritizing your mental health, setting boundaries without over-explaining. Every time you choose growth over validation, you take back another piece of yourself. And piece by piece, you rebuild into someone unrecognizable. In the best way. The people who took you for granted will feel it. Maybe not immediately, maybe not publicly, but they will. They'll scroll past a picture and pause. They'll hear your name and feel a knot in their stomach. Not because you wanted them to feel bad, because the version of you they knew no longer exists. The one who tolerated crumbs, who over-explained, who waited around for clarity. She's gone, replaced by someone who knows she's the table. Someone who doesn't audition for love. She curates it. And what's even more important is this: when you focus on building your life, it's not just about showing someone what they lost. It's about realizing what you almost lost by staying stuck. You almost stayed small. You almost made yourself easy to keep. You almost put your healing on hold to stay emotionally available to someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. But now you're rewriting that story. Not with a dramatic declaration, but with quiet, consistent progress. With every workout, every late-night journaling session, every new boundary, every time you say yes to yourself, you're rewriting who you are and what you expect from the world. The glow-up isn't just physical. It's spiritual, mental, emotional. It's the way you look at yourself in the mirror and feel proud, not because you finally got over them, but because you finally got back to you, the version of you that was never lost, just buried under pain, confusion, and misplaced loyalty. And when you rise from that place, that's the kind of transformation no one can ignore, not even the one who let you go. They'll feel the shift, not because you made sure they saw it, but because your evolution will ripple through every space you touch. You'll walk into your future with so much power that they'll realize too late. They didn't just lose someone. They lost the chance to grow alongside someone who was destined for more. And now that destiny is unfolding with or without their apology, their awareness, or their regret. You're not waiting to be noticed anymore. You're building something worth remembering. And in the process, you become someone who doesn't just move on. You rise so loudly that forgetting you becomes impossible. Regret isn't something you can force. You can't post the right picture, send the right message, or craft the perfect "I'm doing amazing without you" moment and expect someone to suddenly realize your worth. Regret doesn't work like that. It doesn't respond to strategy, and it doesn't show up on your schedule. It creeps in quietly, often when someone least expects it. When you've stopped trying, stopped caring, and fully detached. And that's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to make him regret losing you is the exact moment when it becomes possible. Because here's what actually creates regret. It's not your absence. It's your evolution. It's the fact that you didn't just leave, you grew. You didn't sit in heartbreak waiting for someone to come back and choose you. You sat with your pain, felt every inch of it, and then used it as fuel to rebuild. You started choosing peace over chaos, growth over attention, purpose over pettiness. You became someone who doesn't need validation to know her value. And that kind of transformation is impossible to ignore. He might not say it. He might never send the message admitting what he lost. But he'll feel it. He'll see you rising in your own world, glowing differently, moving with clarity, unbothered by his silence. And he'll realize something's changed. You're not waiting anymore. You're not angry. You're just unavailable, emotionally, mentally, energetically. He no longer has access. And when someone loses access to the most sincere, giving, loving version of you, it doesn't matter how many people come after you. None of them will offer what you did with the same depth or authenticity. But here's the truth: by the time regret hits him, you won't care. Not because you're cruel, but because you've outgrown the part of you that needed his recognition. You've stopped needing someone to feel bad in order to feel better. That's where real healing lives. In the space where you no longer seek reaction. You're not living to be seen. You're not trying to make a point. You're simply moving forward, eyes ahead, no longer looking back to see if he's watching. This isn't about proving anything. It's about becoming someone that no longer matches the story you were once a part of. You stop trying to show him what he missed because you know it's not your job to teach someone how to appreciate you. That lesson is his to learn. And if he learns it too late, that's not your burden to carry. You've already done the hard work of letting go. You've walked through the fire of disappointment and come out stronger, sharper, softer in the right places. You've built a life where your worth isn't measured by who stays, but by how you show up for yourself when no one else is clapping. What's beautiful is that you never had to orchestrate any of it. You didn't have to play games, seek revenge, or act like you didn't care. You just had to actually stop caring about what he thinks. You had to let go of the outcome. You had to trust that healing would bring something better than the apology you never got. And it did. Because in the end, regret is not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to rise, to choose yourself, to evolve, and to protect the peace you fought so hard to find. And as you do, the people who took you for granted will eventually look back. Not because you made them, but because they finally see what they had when it's already too late. That's how regret works. Quiet, slow, inevitable. But your story was never about his realization. It was always about your liberation. At some point, you stop trying to be remembered and start focusing on being unforgettable. not through your presence in someone's life, but through the life you build after them. This isn't about revenge. It's not about making him beg or wish or wonder. It's about walking away so completely, healing so deeply, and rising so unapologetically that regret becomes a footnote in his story, while your story keeps climbing. Because the truth is, the most powerful thing you can do is not prove your worth to someone who didn't see it. It's to become someone so whole, so aligned, so at peace that nothing about them even defines you anymore. Let him regret. Let him remember. Let him replay every version of you he can't access anymore. But you're already gone, already growing, already becoming someone even you can't wait to meet. The